Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Around Town. I'm your host, Ron Giordano, and our guest today is Cynthia Kanner from the Prairie State Conservation Coalition. And we want to remind everybody you're listening to 101.5 FM, your Huntley Community Radio station. Cynthia, welcome to Around Town. Tell us about Prairie State.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you again. So Prairie State Conservation Coalition is a collective voice for land conservation in Illinois, which basically means we are serving conservation organizations throughout the state. So conservation land trusts, conservancies, and others. So we welcome any type of conservation organization to join, restoration companies, forest preserves, all those, so that we have a nice, big, loud voice for conservation in Illinois.
I understand you just received a major grant.
Yes, it's coming. We are going to be receiving a up to $42 million grant from the Illinois Clean Energy Community Foundation.
So now how will that grant be used, Cynthia?
So we will be setting up a natural areas grant program of our own, and that money will be re-granted out to conservation organizations, working very similarly that how it has been working with the foundation. So for 25 years, our conservation organizations throughout the state have been able to apply for grants for land acquisition, stewardship, and capacity building. So the whole point is to enhance and preserve natural areas and wildlife habitat throughout Illinois.
And how large is the area that Prairie State actually works with right now?
The whole state. So we serve members throughout the whole state. There are about 34 conservation land trusts,
Okay.
and land conservancies. And so that's who we serve, and that's our coalition.
It's quite an accomplishment. I mean, that's a lot of work and a lot of effort. I mean, and a lot of people that have to work with you and you with them to make this thing all possible, correct?
Absolutely. A lot of partnering, and that's something that I really adore working on. I love community engagement. I love moving around the state and connecting with underserved populations that haven't been part of the conservation conversation. So that's very important to me. And in my first year, to get to know our coalition members, I traveled the whole state. I had an idea and a plan to meet all of our members, and I did that. And it took me my whole first year to do that. And then building those partnerships with government agencies, with other groups that work in the conservation space, but maybe they're more focused on food and agriculture. So really building partnerships across the board in Illinois. So we're working together.
We should also mention that you are the first executive director. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, that's a feather in your cap.
You know, I think it's a great thing. It's because I don't have to follow anyone who did an amazing job.
Okay.
I can lay the groundwork for it, but also it's a big responsibility. But after 30 years of working in the nonprofit arena, that is exactly where I wanted to be and work more statewide.
And what were the things your first year? You did a lot of work, a lot of traveling the first year. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I started my job in January 2023, and the next month, a few weeks later, I started my visits, my statewide visits, right in Rockford Natural Land Institute. And so when I go and visit folks, I stay overnight. Sometimes people put me up on a couch or have a guest room, and I go all over the place, and they show me their properties that they've preserved in perpetuity. So all these organizations, that's what they're doing. That's what their mission is, to save land.
So are they looking for direction when you look at their land, what they're looking for you to do or offer to them?
What we do for those organizations is provide an opportunity to network with others and to support them through trainings. I started a Conservation Connector series, so it's a webinar series. I just kicked off a bi-monthly executive director Zoom call so that we're talking about specific issues that executive directors of conservation organizations like land trusts have to deal with. So we are a support and serve those groups. And what we're developing an outreach plan. We have a new strategic plan, and we're going to have a really nice, healthy resource library so that our organizations who are members can go into a portal and say they need a conservation attorney. They can go there. We'll have a list of expertise in various areas. So it's really just an honor to serve these organizations that are on the ground all over the state doing this amazing work.
So I'm a person, I've got a piece of land, and I'm thinking, gee, what do I do with this? I want to preserve it. I don't want it to be built upon. Who do I contact? How do I go about that?
If a person is familiar in their local community, like here we've got the Land Conservancy of McHenry County, then they may already know, well, I know what they do and that's what they do. But they could also contact Prairie State Conservation Coalition and say, how do I do this? I'm in Macomb. Who do I contact? And I'll say, well, there's Prairie Lands Conservancy in Macomb. You want to connect with them. And so that's kind of where it can start.
So do they go to your website or they contact you by phone? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't get a whole lot of calls about people specifically about land that they're looking to donate or sell. A handful of times, and then I help connect them to the people in their region. I got a call from someone who had some wooded area and farmland, and they were in the Peoria area. So I said, well, you want to talk with Peoria Wilds, which is a new conservation land trust in Peoria.
So now once this land is donated, okay, what happens to it after that?
Well, then they would set up a relationship. If they might donate the land to an organization, and then that organization has the responsibility to then store the land and keep the land. There are also conservation easements. So a private landowner can put an easement on their property, and a lot of times they will help restore the land and maintain the land, but a local conservation land trust will also help with that storing. There are examples all over where they have special work days on that property. And then some conservation organizations, land trusts, conservancies purchase land. So it's a fee land, and they just are purchasing it. And then that's the question. You can acquire land, but then you've got to take care of it. So that stewardship part is super important. And the grant that we are getting, that we're going to be re-granting out funds on an annual basis, part of that can go towards stewardship. So a person can apply specifically for stewardship work on land.
So if you donate your land, I think for tax purposes, do you then fill out the Form 8283, is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And then it's identified, you have to have an appraisal what the value of the land is. And I think there's a tax deduction over 5 years. And based on the value of that land, then it's signed off by the organization that's acquiring the land and the I believe the appraiser too, both sign off on that. So there's a benefit for the person who donates the land as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some tax incentives now that and some future ones coming. So there's some legislation that Prairie State Conservation Coalition, we have various different committees. We do have a policy committee. So in the future, there may be some movement toward better tax incentives for donating land. But one of the things that I mentioned as I traveled around the state is I'm now my second year. I've been going back around the state and doing some more community engagement. So one of the things that I'm setting up is not just an annual conference, which we do, which has been at Starved Rock. I've moved that for next year for our 20th anniversary to Pierre Marquette State Park Lodge and Conference Center, that down on the Illinois, near the confluence of the Illinois and the Mississippi.
Sure.
So because we're statewide, there's a lot of activity up north. There are a lot of forest preserves and conservation districts. So I'm very sensitive to the fact that we're statewide, and we're moved the conference to Pierre Marquette. And then I'm also holding in September a one-day conference in Southern Illinois, where we'll be at Giant City State Park Lodge and Conference Center down there. So really moving around the state, and I think that this is a model for moving our annual conference, which we have a really wonderful, diverse group of people that come to that conference, from conservation land trusts to forest preserves to restoration companies, about 130, 140 people. And we've expanded that to 3 days as well. So we're doing more concurrent workshops, and then we've got partnership with the DNR. They come out and give their updates. We had a dining with the DNR. And I recently told them that for our 20th anniversary, we're going to have to do a dancing with the DNR because we're going to be celebrating.
I know the DNR, some people love the DNR. Some people say, oh, I don't know if I like the DNR at all. There's pros and cons. Will this be open to the public?
The conference?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, people can register online, and it's a great collection of people, and it's actually, as we work to expand our membership base, these are the people that the organizations that we really want to expand to. So this year we're working on our outreach plan. So we're expanding the backbone of our organization, or the center pole of the tent, is our conservation land trust for sure. And then, but we're expanding the tent because we see that how critical it is with the effects of climate change and how important mitigation is. And so broadening that tent allows us to bring in more partners and more voices, so that collectively we have this loud voice in Illinois, because we don't have a conservation fund at the state level. We'd like to see that someday and grow that pot itself. But now, with a private organization receiving this grant that then is going back out to our communities, I hope that we can leverage that, and we plan to add more dollars to that. So I think in 2026 we'll probably have a capital campaign where we're adding many more millions to that corpus, so that we don't spend that money down. We want to have that last.
Sure. Now, if people are interested, what website do they go to, Cynthia?
prairiestateconservation.org.
That's simple.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give that one more time.
prairiestateconservation.org.
Now, is there also a number they can call, or is it you prefer the website?
Yeah, website's great. Yes, the number is my cell number. So
okay,
if someone really wants to reach me, they'll find me.
We'll go by the website.
Yeah.
Now, how big is your staff that you have right now?
Me.
Just a one-person staff.
Oh,
okay.
So that's
wow.
that's staff and full time, and but we've got 3 people who work on contract, and we've got a bookkeeper, and we've got a wonderful woman, Sandy Kazmarski, who works on our communication and marketing. So, and we've got a GIS guy, Dave Holman, who also does work up in Wisconsin. So I am not alone whatsoever, but I am the only staff person. And that will change when the grant comes over. We have a long year of transition coming up, but then we'll have staff who will execute the grant program.
So now, what office are you working out of?
I work out of my home in Algonquin, and I travel the state and travel locally too.
So will your staff eventually work out of their homes too?
Yes, well, that's to be discovered with the grant program. We're hoping to keep an office in downtown Chicago, where they work now.
So the grant you're receiving, which is a nice sum of money, is that a one-time deal, or do you have to reapply each year?
No, that's funds that they're spending down because the foundation is closing its doors, and they had that amount left, and they came to us and are granting that to us. So it's a one-time. It's an unusual gift.
Oh yeah, and how'd they wind up picking you folks?
Well, from my perspective, Prairie State Conservation Coalition, because we're statewide and our whole mission is land conservation, it's a perfect fit. So their process of going through that is, you might want to ask them exactly how they did that. But to me, that's exactly why we were selected. Because of that mission.
Are you finding the land that's being donated, is it mostly wooded land, or is it farmland, or is it just kind of variety of everything?
It's variety, natural areas and wildlife habitat. So a lot of wooded areas, open space, but it really varies, and it varies around the state.
And of course, downstate Illinois, there's a lot of variety there compared to up north where they have the forest preserves and things like that. So the picking the right location is a combination of the folks contacting you and also you reviewing those areas to see if it's suitable.
Well, and that's one reason why I'm having this our first regional conference down in southern Illinois, because it's such a different landscape. You have the Shawnee Forest, and you don't have a lot of conservation land trust down there. There's a small organization in Carbondale, but then there's Heartlands Conservancy, which is now their board of directors voted to be active in the lower third part of Illinois. So now there is an organization that a landowner could contact to donate land or talk about that. So I think you're going to see more coming out of southern Illinois, and more partnerships and a lot of conversation. And that's exactly why I wanted to have this regional conference down there.
Sure. It's interesting because in Wisconsin they consider us flatlanders, but yet you go out to Galena, it's certainly not flat out there. Galena's a whole different environment.
Illinois is absolutely amazingly diverse, and folks should get out and roam around Illinois because it's so interesting. When I've traveled, you're going across the flatlands, the farmlands,
Right.
and then when you get closer to the river, to the Mississippi, you're suddenly diving down these twisty, turny ravine roads, and you just think, wow, I just dropped off the edge and now I'm going into these ravines. And then Southern Illinois has the Cache River, and I was kayaking in a cypress, forest basically. And cottonmouth snakes and pecan trees are native, and
I think folks listening to this would think that you're in another country altogether with the snakes and the kayaking and the cypress.
It is just amazing.
I know when you drive to Galena, it's also amazing too, because all of a sudden you go from flatland to hills and valleys and high ranges. It's just like a whole different country altogether.
Yes, yeah. The glaciers didn't do anything over there, so it's it's quite amazing. You can go skiing.
Right.
If you have snow.
So you did your kayaking. Is that the only area that you did kayak, Cynthia?
No, I did some canoeing when I was visiting Joe Davis Conservation Foundation, but we ended up canoeing in Iowa on the Yellow River. So I do my own. I'm a volunteer river guide on the Fox River, so I take people out on the Fox River. And I'm also proud to say, I have to put a plug in, I'm a new board member of Friends of the Fox River, which is a wonderful organization, and they're a member of Prairie State Conservation Coalition.
Holy mackerel, what did we miss here? I just had one title here, the Executive Director of Prairie State, but goodness, there's a lot more things you're doing.
There's a lot going on, absolutely, and all fabulous. We have a wonderful board of directors. We have 14 board members who themselves are mostly executive directors of conservation land trusts, but others as well. So it's a really wonderful board, and we're really working a lot. A strategic plan that we put into place has a lot of emphasis on doing our work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, and we're working with starting to have conversations with Indigenous community engagement, and I'm on calls, bi-state calls about the work there. And of course, we've got, for the first time, a federally recognized tribe in Illinois. The Potawatomi are now federally recognized in Illinois.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And when did that take effect?
Just last month.
Really?
Yes. So that's really big news, and that that there are a lot of conversations around land and ownership, and
right.
Land going back to the original inhabitants, ancestral lands, and so it's really, really an exciting time, and especially when we're talking about environmental justice and working with conservation in different communities and different settings. We have a wonderful relationship that has started with Alpha Kappa Alpha, which is a professional black women's sorority, and they have a global mission to plant trees. So they've made a connection with one of our conservation land trusts down in Belleville, and I just had a dinner with 25 of us and 4 chapters of Alpha Kappa Alpha through a grant that I received. And we're doing more than that. So we've got really nice things happening all over the state. It's patient work. It takes time to build relationships.
All these things you're doing in all these different organizations you're part of, when do you sleep?
Oh, I find time to walk my dog. I knit.
Okay.
I garden. I'm a native gardener, and I think working from home and working remotely really helps, because I don't have to commute anymore. And then when I'm on the road, I get a lot done. So I recently had a week-long trip, and I had 5 different purposes to that trip and 4 different Airbnb stays. I love Airbnb. Am I allowed to do that? Was that an advertisement?
No, you're okay. Well, you're saving money by going to Airbnb.
Well, and then I asked for homestays, and that works out too.
That's interesting. Homestays.
Homestays, yep.
And you get a good response with that.
Yeah. My first one was our board member. He's off the board now. Filled his terms. They had a whole suite in their basement area and a ping pong table. So we had a great time playing ping pong. I'm a ping pong player. So it was great. 3 nights. My board member put me up, and his wife was awesome too.
That's really great. Well, we want to thank Cynthia for being here with the Prairie State Conservation Coalition and her new job as Executive Director. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
We want to remind everybody you've been listening to 101.5 FM, your Huntley Community Radio station. Go to huntleyradio.com, click on shows, and you'll find Around Town, and you'll be able to hear more of our shows, and a show that we our recording today. We want to thank everybody for listening. Thank Cynthia for being here. Folks, have a great day.